when I came here, I joined the Sigma Phi Epsilon fraternity, but we were looking for something to have because the Teeks had a fire engine, everybody else had some little thing that they could do at football games or riding a parade with, and we decided we would go look to see if we could buy a fire engine, something like this, and we ended up getting a old fire extinguisher that was used on air bases, and this one came from Salina, Kansas, when the air base down there was getting ready to close down. The reason why we thought about the cannon was when I was in Kinsley High School, two of my classmates were in the ag department there, and they had created a cannon out of a balloon with hydrogen and oxygen from acetylene. And they blew all the windows out of the vocational ag building in Kinsley, Kansas at the high school. So we knew it would work. So what we did was we brought back this big fire extinguisher, and we took a cutting torch to it and cut it up and did some welding on it, and we painted it black and gold with our colors, and we also put Sig Ep on it. And then we practiced, and we'd get balloons, and we'd put balloons down the mouth of this cannon, and then we would throw a firecracker in there, and the firecracker would blow the balloon off, and it sounded really great. Well, the first home game, we decided we'd take it the home game, but we didn't want to rent a acetylene oxygen torch or anything like this. So we just took a whole bunch of balloons down to a welding company, and I filled a whole bunch of balloons up with Van Lewis, and we put them in the back of my car, carrying around these almost a bomb in the back of my car, not even realizing that. So we came back and hooked up the cannon to my car, and we pulled it to the game. And when the game started, we put a balloon in there and threw a firecracker in there, and all it did was poof. It didn't make a sound. So we tried again, and it still didn't make a sound. So come to find out that the balloons, the molecule makeup of the balloons are so large that the acetylene oxygen would leak out of the balloon and just leave the oxygen in there and you couldn't make any sound. So the next game, we actually rented an acetylene oxygen torch, brought it there, and we filled the balloon up there. And the first one we fired off, it almost knocked us out of the stadium. It was so loud. So after that, we have had that cannon at almost all the football games. And in fact, if you go today to the football game, you'll still see the Sig Ep cannon. And this was made over 50 years ago, and it's still in use. And so I'm really proud of the fact that that Van and I made the cannon that is still used at the football games. And it's a great tradition, and I'm glad to see it continuing.
I've got a long history with the cannon, not like Loren Peppard, of course, because Loren was there when they conceived of the idea and put it all together. But it's pretty cool. I mean, you put ignitable things around a bunch of young men, and gosh, you know, there's a lot of fun that can happen. And it's kind of dangerous too, as we found out. When I got here in '84, I was pretty much involved with it right up until we brought the fraternity back, because the Sig Eps, they closed down for about an 8-10 year period, something like that. And when they closed down, Mark Pauls, who was at that time the assistant athletic director, he came to me and said, "I hear you know something about this cannon. You know, where is it and what's it all about?" I said, "Well, it's actually sitting on in a parking lot area. Jim Keller down at Northwest Business Systems had a parking lot, a parking area that he was just sitting there." So he got some folks together from the athletic department that they repainted it, but they didn't have anybody to run it. So Mark asked me if I would run it. I said, sure, you know, I'll do it. And so back then, when the opposing team, or whenever there was a kickoff, we would shoot the cannon off. And it was kind of a more art than science, but when the opposing team was kicking off, you would shoot the cannon off right when the kicker would plant his foot and was swinging through, and you'd shoot that cannon off. And several times we got cursed and all of that. Even one time there was an opposing coach that threw down his clipboard and was coming at us, and after that point we kind of had to stop doing that. But There were several occasions, even when I was an undergraduate, we would stack that thing through so many balloons, and we would still fill them up right there and tie them off and put them in there. And there was a couple occasions where, static electricity, something set it off, and we blew the eardrums out of a couple of people. It wasn't great. And it really was, kind of dangerous. So when we got the fraternity going back again, Loren came back and said, "Whatever, you run the cannon and everything," and we kind of approached we want to turn it back over to the undergraduates. But the athletic department was like, not sure if we want that kind of risk. So Loren stepped in and said, "Hey, make it safe, figure out something to do." In fact, Loren backed it up with making a donation to get the cannon fixed and safe. So we put a trap door in the back with a kind of a metal nipple there that you put the balloon on, and then you lock it into place, and then you have a hose on the other end with a valve in between there, and you put the accelerant in, the balloon blows up inside, and then you turn the valve off and let her go. Boom. So, and I've been cursed by other people because there's a long time before they love it, but it always catches somebody off guard, and it will, people will come down and say, "Oh my gosh." It's been an interesting tradition, and there's other different types of cannons out there, but I don't think anything gives you as big a boom as the good old oxyacetylene setup.
This is the original cannon that was built back in the 1940s. We decided to upgrade the cannon in the late 70s, early 80s, so we built a new one. And then we brought the original back in the mid to late 90s because we liked the fact that it was from the 40s. We modified it to make it safer, and we've had it ever since. We shoot it off at every football game, after touchdowns, after halftime, after the final.